Start recording. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us in the second episode of the San Antonio Math Includes professional panel. Today we have Mr. Frank Ferarri. If you could please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Frank Ferarri. I'm the president of the Student Association for STEM Advocacy, and I work with students on how to advocate to increase STEM funding from the government to underserved and underrepresented areas.
Yeah. I've actually attended his conference and it was really engaging, and I really felt that I made a big impact when talking to House representatives and senators, and it was really engaging. So, first of all, why did you choose STEM advocacy?
Excellent question. The reason STEM advocacy really stuck out for me is I went through a robotics program. I was on an FRC team in high school, team 1718, the Fighting Pie out of Michigan. And the experiences it provided to me were very valuable as I went through college and began my career. And making sure that those opportunities are available to other students as well is an important aspect to my life that I want to give to others. And one of the key ways that I have found to do that is through advocacy. And making sure students are involved in that process is important as well, because they are the best spokespeople for robotics and robotics competitions and why they're important.
Yeah. I feel like that correlates with SaMi's mission as well, and trying to get underrepresented and like really not represented areas into like STEM and stuff, because STEM is like really important, and I feel that everyone should have access to it no matter like what their demographics are. So STEM advocacy, I think it's pretty cool. So what are some
Yeah.
so you organized the SASA conference in Washington, D.C. So what are some pros in organizing that conference, except for being able to make like a really positive impact on the community?
Yeah. So SASA, the Student Association for STEM Advocacy, our kind of key event is the National Advocacy Conference, which takes place in June in Washington, D.C. each year. During the COVID years, we had remote opportunities available for people as well. And what the skills that I've gained by organizing a conference like that are really organizational, making sure that everything happens on time and in a correct order so that things happen as they should, as well as increasing communication skills. There's a kind of a sense of sales in there as well, making sure people are well informed and that they feel that the money they're putting forward to come out and attend the conference is being well used, and that they get a positive experience from that. A lot of organization goes into it, as I'm sure you can assume. There's a lot of moving parts: organizing speakers, making sure everybody's meetings are set up, and that everybody feels educated going into those meetings. Secondarily, the public speaking aspect of being able to give the presentations and speaking with elected officials to organize these meetings, as well as their staff, cannot be understated. And that's just some of the skills I've gained by working on this. There's also leadership aspects, as I work with a team of individuals with varying levels of advocacy experience, as well as STEM robotics experience, to kind of put this all together.
Yeah, so the meetings he's referencing are meetings with the actual senators and representatives. So what he's doing is like really getting hands-on with talking to senators and representatives to actually make a difference in what they're voting for, and hopefully give more money to STEM laws and STEM acts. So what are yeah.
I can step in here for a second. James, you're a great example of kind of what students kind of gain by being able to come to this conference and speak with their elected officials. As an attendee, you went kind of through the training process, as well as some of your teammates, and learned the skills that you need in order to be successful in those meetings. Most of the time when students go into a meeting with a legislator, they think What can I do as a student that would impact this elected official? I mean, a lot of the time, the elected official will think something similar, that the students are just there for a photo op, and teaching the students the skills that they need in order to be successful in those meetings, have the confidence and the knowledge in order to say, this is the funding that we want. This is the bill that can help create more students like myself and give opportunities to other students as an important step. Over the years that we've been running this conference, we've advocated on behalf mostly of the Every Student Succeeds Act, which has a subsection in it that allows money to flow through schools towards extracurricular STEM robotics type initiatives.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, what are some things to like look out for if you're planning on uh doing some STEM advocacy conferences or just uh outreach in general?
Yeah, if you're trying to do general outreach for your team or another STEM initiative, finding a time that's appropriate to talk to an elected official is key. Parades are a great one, or you can invite them to your school. They love going to schools for opportunities to speak with their constituents as well as students, and just talking to them about your program and how it's been successful, the skills that you've learned by being a part of it, helps them remember what is important when they go back and they're talking about legislation, and they can say, we know this one works. We've had students that have gone through it and they've learned these skills. And you can either pitch it as it's positive for career development, they're getting career technical skills, or it's building hands-on learning opportunities for people who decide to go on for higher education. Um,
Yeah, and
yeah, another opportunity is you can go to fundraisers and stuff and just speak with them, just try and build that relationship. That's the key to advocacy, is having your elected official kind of know who you are and that you're the expert on something STEM, robotics, math, anything like that.
yeah. So what are some like when if students are going to be talking to senators and representatives, what'd be some things to look out for and to make sure that your point gets to them?
Great question. So elected officials are kind of professionals at not committing to anything. They will try and dodge your question as much as possible, and not give a committal answer. That's basically what they're there to do, is to not commit to things, because then they have it on the record that that's something that they want to do. So being on the lookout for those dodges, or redirections to a different topic. Sometimes if you're bringing up education or STEM funding, they might redirect it to some sort of other type of funding. They might try and say, well, how do you think we should solve that problem? The budget is already overspent. And maneuvering your way out of that and continuing to hammer on your point that you're not there to discuss those other things. You're just there to say, this is what works, and your job is to figure out how to fund it to give students these opportunities.
Yeah, and that was actually a really stressed point during the conference and during the meetings.
Mhm.
Um, I thought I personally, when talking to them, I realized just how dodgy they are. So it was really interesting trying to get them back on track of what we were trying to communicate. So that was a really unique part of talking to senators.
Yep,
And
one of my experiences in my few years advocating, is we were talking in the state legislature with one of our senators, and we were trying to talk about education funding, and he tried to spin it to be about when school started and why it should be after Labor Day. And that was just an interesting bit. I was with a couple of adults who were school board members, and one of them kind of bit onto that and started getting into an argument with the elected official about it. And it essentially derailed the entire meeting. And that's a great example of why students are so much better at this, is they just commit to that point and they know that that's what they're there to talk about, and they will push on that. Um, Part of the reason that they make great advocates.
yeah, one of the senators actually offered to give us a tour of the Capitol building in like the middle of when we were talking. So we had to like keep them on track of needing to fund more of the STEM X. So you're actually your real job isn't actually STEM advocacy, but neurological research. So can you please explain on basically what you do and what's the impact of the research you're doing right now?
Yeah, so I started out doing advocacy in college as kind of a hobby, something I did on the side, similar to how students do robotics or extracurriculars outside of their schoolwork. But once I graduated, I need to get a real job. My actual degree is in molecular biology, and from that, I had kind of sifted through the career opportunities with that, several of which are going to med school to become a doctor or going to graduate school to get a PhD and research kind of cells, bacteria like that in a lab and write research papers. After working through kind of those experiences and realizing those weren't things I wanted to do, I kind of ended on clinical research, which a lot of people aren't aware of the field, but clinical research is the it's kind of the science and the research that people do on things that aren't yet medically accepted as the treatment option. Um, so it's the new stuff, the stuff that they're coming out with that in a few years might be on the market. Those drug commercials that you see on TV, those are kind of clinical research
Mhm.
things that have come from it. In my specific job, I work in neurology, which deals with neurological diseases, the most common which are probably Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, Huntington's disease, which a few people may have heard of. I specifically work with Parkinson's disease, Huntington's disease, and then another kind of rare movement disorder called ataxia. My studies specifically are called longitudinal observational, which means they're about watching and learning about these people with diseases over time to identify something in them that is changing, that is causing the disease or the symptoms in hopes of creating some sort of treatment for it. Some other clinical research is like drug studies, so new pharmaceuticals or pills that you can take to manage symptoms or potentially treat things. Yeah, that's kind of the broadest overview of it. The main point is that it's trying to learn new medical techniques or learn things about diseases to help people in the future.
Yeah, that actually sounds like really cool. Like studying new drugs and stuff to help solve like really serious problems. That actually sounds really awesome. So what are some like, well, there's a lot of benefits to that actually. You get like new innovation and stuff. So I actually heard that the new or the COVID vaccine from like Pfizer and stuff use like some weird new technology instead of just like the conventional ways of making vaccines. So is that part of clinical research or
Good question. So that would have been a clinical research trial. So how that went about is um, the pharmaceutical company, so Pfizer or Moderna, one of them created this vaccine. And then to get through the process of FDA approval, they needed to get data on how people react with it being taken. So, kind of at the beginning of the pandemic, they had multiple studies going around at many different locations all across the globe. And basically, people came in, they got the shots early, um, and then they waited for 6 months to a year to see any potential side effects that people had, adverse reactions to the injection itself, anything long term related to it, um, so that they could get emergency FDA approval to send it out to the public. And that was kind of in the realm of clinical research. But COVID was a weird time where a
yeah.
lot of things that weren't essential to the medical industry were slowed down or shut down, and everything was kind of focused on moving past that hurdle.
So basically clinical research is um just finding data on like side effects and stuff or
Yeah, a lot of that is.
okay.
So how it's set up is at like the top level, there's the pharmaceutical company that has invested in developing this drug or this treatment. And then
Mm.
at the base level, which is the people that coordinate the most with the patients, which is where I am, the sites, which are usually hospital systems, university hospitals, sometimes smaller doctor clinics that can run these, are the people that the pharmaceutical company has tasked with learning what happens to people when they get this new treatment or drug. Um, so a lot of my job is scheduling visits with patients. We do a lot of different tests on them. Sometimes it's just questionnaires. So like, how are you feeling? Do you feel that you are depressed or have anxiety? Are you able to complete your normal daily living activities like brushing your teeth, showering, stuff like that, better or worse now that you've taken this drug? Um, and another thing we have to check for is adverse reactions. So do you feel that you've had something change in the last couple of months? Do you feel that when you sit up, you get dizzy easier? Um, do you feel that you have a decreased appetite or have increased depression or anxiety, stuff like that? And then we work in conjunction with the doctor who is in charge of the study at your university to determine the likeliness of this change in the person being related to the study drug. And by communicating with the different sites around the country or the world, the pharmaceutical company, they're able to determine, okay, if only one patient at this one site had this side effect, it's probably not related to the drug itself. It's probably related to something else the patient did or some normal progression that they had. Whereas if you get several people popping up with the same issue, it can be seen as something as a side effect that's related to the drug, at which point it needs to be reported as something that would stop the research on the drug if it is severe enough, or kind of listed as a side effect of something that people may experience or may not, and that it's up to them whether they continue or not.
Okay. I don't have any more questions. So thank you for joining us today. Yeah, clinical research, STEM advocacy, very interesting topics. Highly recommended. Thank you.
Yep, of course. Feel free to reach out with any other questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you.